when you hit your child, what does it actually teaches them?
I actually wonder what goes on for the parent.
Ayo.
when the
I did it before, so I was so guilty.
Yeah, I mean, I think maybe stereotypically most persons or mothers in our generation grew up with our own parents using that form of discipline.
Yeah.
So obviously it's a script that we remembered, and therefore it's an easy one to access to use for our own kid. We oftentimes parent the way we were parented, the better and for the worst. But I think with hitting or the use of physical discipline, could be hitting, slapping, physical use of discipline, I think it's more about what's going on for the parent than it is for the child. I guess sitting with how could I regulate myself differently when I feel the urge coming up, or what is it that I'm actually trying to do in this moment when I'm hitting them? Am I trying to get them to absolutely listen to me?
I mean, for me, I hit my son before, and it was because he lied about doing his work. Yeah, it's not homework. It's actually he had an additional class, so I sent him for this class, and I didn't know that he didn't enjoy that class. I sent him to, and he's the sort who will not want to say things to hurt me. So he just went on with it. He goes for the class and all, even though he didn't enjoy it. So he ended up not doing his homework, but he lied by saying that he did all his homework. So when I found the worksheets and it was all not done, I was just so angry, and because it's just so not him to lie, and I was just so disappointed at that point of time, and I hit him, and it was bad. Like, it left a mark on his, on his back, and I felt so terrible about that. And after I calmed myself down, right, he cried really badly. After I calmed myself down, I actually talked to him and I asked him, like, what is the problem actually? And then he tells me, he said that, I really don't enjoy class. And I asked him, what do you want me to do? And he said, can you take me out of the class?
Right.
Yeah, and I immediately did that. And that's it. He was totally different, and it was just that.
So I understand what you mean now. It's like your child is behaving a certain way because, at the age, I would say at the age, there's not a lot of things that can make them behave that way. So by your story, I think, and connecting whatever you're saying, I think your child's behaving that way probably because of how you are behaving also. Maybe they're not getting what you want from you and you're not listening. So when you hit your child, it's more of
us.
We cannot regulate ourselves.
I want, but thanks for sharing, right? And I wonder if it was possible to have that conversation that you had with him minus
the hitting,
the physical use of
I
punishing.
feel like if I had done that, if I had talked to him first before hitting him, I think he would have just told me why. He would have just, but when it was just me finding out that he lied, and I think
that immense disappointment,
it was
and
just
anger. How could you? I'm going to tell you and show you how serious this is.
It was, and now I totally understand what you mean. Like, it's actually me. Like, I should have calmed myself down and talked to him first. I wasn't able to handle my feelings at that moment, and the first thing I did was I hit him.
But I want to acknowledge that too, right? Because I think that's the part that
makes us human.
But we need that holding.
I feel like now it just feels like we have to pussyfoot around them all the time and like always be in control of our emotions, and it's just tiring. I don't think my parents went through that. I remember them chasing me around the table with the cane.
Me too. I got hit by my mom.
Like, they never regulate themselves before doing that.
On that note, right, let's say those years where I was, venting or not regulating my emotions properly and taking it out on my child because she was acting up. And I assume it would somehow affect their emotional development in the long term. Are there anything that I can now do to somehow reverse?
Stop feeling so much guilt about it. She's fine. It's done.
This guilt feeling is actually an interesting one, right? The emotion of guilt is the one that propels us to repair ruptures. So the emotion itself is not all bad. It's actually a signal to you that, what's happening here? maybe I should start to do this differently. How can I? So,
But you are doing things differently.
yes,
She has
yes.
already.
So that emotion is actually helping you. But obviously, sitting it for too long, too immensely, if it becomes like a dagger to yourself, then it might end up being less helpful lah. Yeah.
So what can be done?
Yeah, I was coming back. I was wondering what was that question.
How do we repair the damage that has already been done?
The damage of what has been done. What's the damage?
Like, I fear somehow that
Mom
she
guilt.
feels she feels like her self-worth is affected. You know,
Like the thought of, I'm being hit again. Mommy thinks I'm a bad person. I'm so bad at this.
yeah. I mean,
No, like back then.
yeah.
She's not doing it now anymore. She's like asking what she can do to undo the damage done back then.
But back then, if the damage or the hurt, I think to use the word hurt rather than damage, right? Because it's the hurt that perhaps was what was broken, right? If the hurt then was the child thinking, I'm such a bad person, that's why I'm being hit. Or I've done something so wrong for me to feel this pain, then I must be really very bad. If that was the hurt, then the repair would be, that sense of validation, the words around, there are also many things that you've done that I've missed acknowledging, and you helping out with the dishes is one of them.
Like
really
praise them
appreciate you.
for the good things.
Yeah.
But when we hit our child, right, does that affect them when they are older? Will it affect them emotionally, mentally?
Yeah.
Even though probably I hit him that one time and he was only 6 years old then and he's 14 now, he don't even remember, but I just wonder for those children that probably their parents hit them probably until they're 10 or, and then they stop once they are teenagers. Will it affect them when they grow up?
I think when we talk about hitting, it's worthwhile to describe a bit more around the hitting, right? Hitting can come from a place of discipline in the way you were describing. I'm trying to teach you a lesson here.
Yeah.
The hitting is my conduit of doing it. But if it crosses sometimes for some people, very thin line into more of a punishment, where it becomes a out of control, lack of any impulse to hit. If that happens, it could do more physical hurt in a very substantial way.
The punishing one.
The punishing one. I guess sometimes in the most extreme sense, and I'm not saying that this is what eating means, but in the more extreme sense of the lack of control, the lack of impulses, where one is overtaken by rage, that could sometimes morph into physical abuse. Where it happens over time to a certain intensity where it causes a lot of physical pain. But, I think...
This is happening to the child. So if let's say we hit the child, this can happen to the child when they grow up next time.
I think she's talking about more severe cases where it's no longer you are hitting to discipline, right? But you are
abusing your child.
Abusing the child. So then the hurt would be totally different. And the repair around that hurt would also be very different. If it's more around what you were saying of, I'm just hitting you to let you know, and then I have a conversation with you after, there's still that connection there, and the repair work is being done in a more compassionate, connected, I care for you, therefore I'm so sad way. But it would be different if it came from a place of, I'm going to hit you so that you know how bad this was and I don't really give a shit about, how you feel. Then that would be a very different kind of pain and hurt.
That will probably affect them emotionally as they grow up.
Have way longer consequences compared to how you've described it to be.
Oh, so I really get what you're trying to say now. Yeah, it's a lot is on the parent, because this you should know better as a parent that the child don't know as much as you do.
Unfortunately and fortunately, the parent is the bigger, wiser, stronger.
What do you think of because during my time when I had my son 14 years ago, I learned that you can discipline your child by having a naughty corner. Okay, so this naughty corner.
You also
Did
have.
you guys? I'm sure. So when he's misbehaving, he has to go to the naughty corner.
Yeah.
And you're not allowed to talk. You're just supposed to stand there and all.
Yeah.
But then recently, I see the woke society, like everybody's so against it. Everybody's like, you have to talk to your child. You can't just shut them off. Put them in a corner.
I thought it's the corner for them to reflect.
Yeah, so I feel like, did I do something wrong? Like, I'm a little bit worried now that I did that to my son. You get what I mean?
You need to ask yourself. It means, you know what it means? Let me guess. It means you're avoidant. You don't want to settle the problem. So you try to stand in the corner.
So they are saying things like, oh, don't call it the naughty corner because your kids are not naughty. Don't say. You can't say that.
It's so tiring,
You can't
actually.
you can't tell them like you're so naughty. You have to call it maybe the timeout corner. And then with different ages, your timeout is different time. For example, if it's 1 year old, their timeout should only be 1 minute. If they're 2, then 2 minutes, 3 and 3 minutes. Like, so how
Time one man.
You were describing the timeout, right? Or what people call it as timeout.
Yeah.
It came from quite a specific, I think, time frame where a lot of researchers were doing a lot of research around that, and then there were lots of benefits shown that that would help implement behavioral change.
Yeah.
So that, I think, came from a place where it's all about changing behaviors. You do this, you go for timeout, it gives you a moment to reflect.
Yeah.
But it also puts a wedge between your previous behavior that you were performing, right? So if you're like full on hitting your sibling, then if a parent came in and said, that's really unsafe, go to your timeout right away. One, it stops the inappropriate behavior or the unsafe behavior. Two, the child is left to their own devices to settle down. You hope they would. It's not a guarantee. They might not. And then that's it, right? That's what the timeout is supposed to do. Some people call it time out. Some people call it naughty corner. Some people go and stand at the wall and reflect. Reflect. But how are you going to expect a 4 or 5 year old to reflect on that? I think in that age range, babies, toddlers, preschoolers, to some extent primary school students too, they do require some level of co-regulation.
Yeah. I remember I was like sent to the naughty corner in school, and then I was like, oh my God, when can I eat a cake? When can I eat a cake? I was counting down to eating the cake. That was all the thoughts that was in my head. Never think like what's
time I was in the room, then yes, all my toys to play.
Okay. So actually it doesn't serve any purpose to the child lah.
But it does help in stopping the
whatever
like example, this very bad
But you
thing
have
they are
to
doing.
address the behavior
After that.
once they have calmed down. Is that what you're saying?
I think that would be helpful.
Like debrief,
Yeah. I mean, that's what I did lah. After naughty corner, then we'll talk about what he did wrong and all that. But it's just that right now, we're not allowed to do that. It's like, no, we're not allowed, but like people are saying like that's not the right thing to do. You're not supposed to do that to your child. So it's a bit...
But I do feel sometimes it's a necessity to, like, sometimes talking to them when they are in a state when they cannot absorb anything you're hearing.
It helps, right?
Remove them from the situation, right?
I honestly think as a parent, right, you sort of know your kids. And now they always like advocate gentle parenting, and some kids I really do believe they can be gentle parented. But some
kids really cannot.
can't. Yeah, but when you look at the child, I can feel that, okay, this child at this point, she's going through a very like emotional period. I cannot like shout at her, I cannot raise my voice. I need to like change the way. But some children, you can see that, you can like yell at them and they just like bounce back after that.
Yeah. So
and
true,
I
right?
think you need to, how to say, like, alter and tailor your parenting style to the child, and not even like, my son is this way, this is my way. At different phases of their life, you have to adapt to it as well. This time, I can see, he's taking this, okay, maybe I can push a little more. And sometimes I really cannot, then you need to like tone down and try another way. It's like never ending one. There's no like textbook.
But it sounds like what you were alluding to is a sense of attunement.
Correct.
Yeah, then that's where the connection lies.
So I guess what I got from this conversation is how to display your child is to really like ask yourself, why is this happening? Like, is it me? Or was I not listening? And then number 2 is, how do I make the situation better for the child. Because at that age, they really, like they themselves cannot assess their own emotions, like we have to do it for them.
Yeah.
Right? And I guess the other thing that we want to ask is like childhood trauma. There's a lot of things, like these days, there's a lot of talk about childhood trauma where certain adults, like even at our age, how we behave is based on childhood trauma. Right? But is there a certain age where we start understanding like this is childhood trauma? Or like what are the ingredients to building like childhood trauma?
Yeah, I think that's going to take another podcast in itself, or a few series even.
Okay.
Maybe she's going to leave in 5
I think
minutes.
trauma is a whole.
Oh, is it?
It's a very broad area.
So many
to-
attributes.
And some people remember, some people don't. Some people heal from it naturally. Some people just, like sweep it under carpet and things never get healed. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, trauma in the medical term of diagnosing trauma, for a clinical psychologist, we use the DSM, which basically stands for Diagnostic Statistical Manual. Hopefully I got it right. It's like in its 5th edition now.
Okay.
But that's sort of like, the reference to what criteria or symptoms one must show in order to consider that as a clinical kind of presentation. So when you talk about trauma, you're basically talking about maybe a person having a very heightened sense of hypervigilance, right? So basically, the stress response system there's a bit of a glitch. It's constantly on heightened alert because of perhaps a previous traumatic episode or episodes. And I think Singapore is doing such amazing work with, you might have heard about the ACE questionnaire, the Adverse Childhood Experiences, and there's such good research done around that, that the more you score higher on that questionnaire, the more likely that you might be experiencing difficulties in your mental health area of your life. But the other criteria that comes up apart from hypervigilance is a great sense of, your body is constantly feeling very highly anxious or depressed, or like there could be so many presentations around that. That's hard to cover in a short space of time. And then there's lots of trauma, nightmares of the re-experiencing of what had happened. That oftentimes is coupled with a strong avoidance of things that used to remind you of the trauma. Which could mean, either not going to places or not doing things, not lightly, but in a very dysfunctional way, where you can't really lead the life that you would like to anymore. So I think trauma as the word, it has lots of components to it. Yeah.
Okay. No, we will talk about it next time.
No, but I do want to ask though, because a lot of preschool kids with working parents, they are going to school.
Yeah.
And recently there have been abuse cases and stuff. And some of these children are too young to talk, because you were on the topic of trauma and nightmares. As parents, what can we look out for with our kids, not wanting to go to school?
Yeah.
Because sometimes, it may not be. And most times it's not abuse, right? They just don't want to go to school.
Yeah.
And we often brush that aside as parents. But then what are the signs that we have to be aware of?
That's such a good question. I think the important thing to note is that children in themselves are mostly resilient. Even the most difficult traumatic experience that they've been through before, most of them come out of it, come through it in a very resilient way. There is a small proportion to which, because of either biological makeup or systemic factors, that the trauma might kind of have a bigger impact on them. But we must know that that's more of the minority than the majority. So to first have the understanding that, yes, for most parts, my child is resilient. This is really unfortunate that that has happened. The things that you want to look out for would be if signs of like behavioral change that you mentioned the last time, and that persists for more than a month or months. And you're tracking over time, and if the child starts having a drop in their appetite, maybe previously the moment you buy French fries, they would go straight for it, but now
doesn't
they don't
interest
want to eat
them
anymore. Maybe previously they really enjoyed playing, but now they kind of I just want to sleep, or I just leave me alone, I wanna be by myself. Then those would be the red lights that I would be really kind of paying attention to. Not like a once-off thing, but if it kind of happens maybe across a couple of weeks, then you might want to kind of speak to someone to help them kind of make sense of it.
Sorry.
Yeah.
You're doing so good. 47 minutes, you never cough. Okay. Maybe I invite you again for the childhood trauma episode because I feel like that one.
Yeah, interesting.
So we come to the end of this episode. I hope you guys liked it. Thank you so much, Claire, for sharing all of that with us. I think at the end of the day, what Claire is saying is that who you are as parents affect your kids a lot. For example, beating your kids, understanding your child is really what's most important. Yeah, and if let's say your child is giving you problems, ask them why first.
We are the problem.
Find out why your child is behaving that way first, and then ask them how they can or how you can settle the issue for them. Yeah, instead of just beating them and trying to inflict fear, have that conversation with them instead of physical abuse.
Discipline.
Yeah, instead of physical discipline. But if you guys have anything like us to talk about, let us know in the comment section below. If not, we'll see you guys in the next episode.
Bye.